So everybody has now read in all the newspapers and social media and everything about the water test results in Creedmoor with the iron and manganese levels showing up at, I believe they're trace levels is what I will call them. But I would like to hear SGWASA's, I know that there was some public press release about the water, the lead in the iron and the manganese in the water, and I'd like to hear from Scott on why there's water and manganese showing up in the Creedmoor water.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. And I've asked the Assistant Executive Director, Chris Summerlin, to present and provide some information to us. And Chris, if you would come forward, please. And Chris has information on the 3 topics under your discussion items this evening.
All right, good afternoon. So some recent water tests were done by the City of Creedmoor, and they've indicated higher values of iron and manganese at the fire hydrants that they tested. And I wanted to go through some specifics on what iron, manganese, MCLs, which is a maximum contaminant level, and what secondary MCLs or SCMLs are. Iron is a naturally occurring mineral that can be found in water, often due to the interaction of water with soil and rocks. Iron is not generally considered to be a health concern in water, but can cause some aesthetic issues like metallic taste, discoloration, and staining. Manganese is also a naturally occurring mineral that can naturally dissolve into groundwater as it moves through soil and rock. Manganese can cause aesthetic issues such as metallic taste, discoloration, and staining. So what is an MCL? A maximum contaminant level. This is the highest permissible level of a substance in drinking water that is legally enforceable under the Safe Drinking Water Act. And likewise, what is a secondary MCL? This is a non-enforceable guideline established by the EPA for contaminants in drinking water that can cause cosmetic or aesthetic effects like taste, odor, and color. They are different than MCLs because they are not legally enforceable and do not focus on health effects like MCLs do. So what are the enforceable values for iron and manganese? Neither iron or manganese have MCL values or maximum contaminant levels, but do have secondary MCL values. Now, this does not mean that SGWASA isn't concerned about them, but does mean that they are more aesthetic concerns than enforceable water quality values. The secondary MCL for iron is 0.30 milligrams per liter, and the secondary MCL for manganese is 0.05 milligrams per liter. The copy of the newest consumer confidence report that SGWASA puts out for 2024, it will be published soon. But the values for iron leaving the water treatment plant are 0.118 milligrams per liter, well below the secondary MCL, and manganese is 0.012 milligrams per liter, also well below the secondary MCL. I want to ensure the board that SGWASA is well aware of the test values in Creedmoor being higher than the secondary MCL, and we're taking this very seriously. Traditionally, when we see higher values in the distribution system for iron and manganese, the response has been to flush an area to get lower values. This has previously worked, but as you saw with the latest round of water tests done by the City of Creedmoor, flushing did not bring these values to below the secondary MCL. I cannot say with confidence that the flushing that was done at the locations was exactly the same protocol that SGWASA would have followed, meaning length of time, number of gallons per minute flushed, stuff like that, because we were not part of the water test. But I can say that we are looking into these concerns and keeping customers in mind. So what are we at SGWASA doing about this? We have partnered with Hazen and Sawyer to take a look into this and give us recommendations on 1, what kind of things can contribute to higher iron and manganese values in the distribution system. 2, what can be done to lower the values we are seeing in the distribution system. 3, we are developing a flushing program and a distribution model with Hazen and Sawyer that will tie directly into this and hopefully give us a path forward and further enhancing water quality. Fourth, you will also see in the proposed budget tonight that we are asking for 2 utility maintenance mechanics that will focus on flushing, fire hydrant maintenance, and other things that can help improve water quality. I encourage you to consider these positions in your vote tonight on the budget as a good proactive step towards improving water quality throughout our service area. Just like that hot water anode rod issue that was brought to our attention, we want to ensure that we have the best information and best available answers. So we felt that partnering with Hazen and Sawyer was the correct approach for getting to the bottom of this and developing a mitigation program. Also know that older pipes and infrastructure could possibly be a contributing factor for higher values of iron and manganese, and we have infrastructure in the ground in places that's from the 1930s and 1940s. Understanding the assets that we have are part of our AIA program, and when we have another engineering firm working on for us, as well as inputting this information into the distribution model we're developing with Hazen and Sawyer. This will lead to a more robust program for coming up with CIP projects related to replacing old infrastructure.
So if flushing is so important, and that seems to be SGWASA's position on keeping this water numbers low going forward, and that the flushing method that's being used by PACE and the fire department is in question, then my question is, why is SGWASA not doing more flushing when in December of 24, we sent a letter outlining the contract that showed that SGWASA was supposed to be doing flushing for the last 10 years, and it's not being done. The other thing I will say right now is these 2 positions that are in this budget, if they are not filled within 3 months, I am going to ask this board to approve outsourcing the flushing to a company until we can have the personnel to do the job, because the citizens of Creedmoor deserve the clean water quality that they've been promised, and they're not getting it. They don't believe they're getting it. There's no way I can convince them that they're getting it. We can tell them this is not dangerous. It doesn't matter. If flushing these lines is the answer, it's SGWASA's responsibility to maintain the flushing on these lines, at least in the city of Creedmoor, so we can have better water quality. That's all I'm going to say on that.
And to that point, that is why we are partnering with Hazen and Sawyer to ensure that we are taking the correct approach by flushing. We want to ensure that although traditionally that is what we have done, we want to ensure that that is the correct approach and there's not something else going on in the system that would potentially cause higher values of iron and manganese. And so we just want to make sure we want another engineering firm to look at this to help us make the best guided decisions for this.
So when you say what it's been done, it hasn't been done. There's been not a actual regular maintenance flushing of the fire hydrants in Creedmoor. There has not been. Has not been in 5 years that I've been on this board. And if it wasn't for the volunteer fire department, there would have been no flushing at all. But it's not being maintained. It's in the contract when we sold the water system to SGWASA that it would be done, which was before Scott. But it hasn't been done. If flushing is the answer, this needs to be done, and it needs to be done now, not waiting and waiting. And my question is, wasn't Hazen and Sawyer the people that did the hydraulic model?
So if I may, I'd like to jump into this and answer that question by saying, no, it was not Hazen and Sawyer that did it. It was McGill Associates that developed the first model back in 2021 for us. And they've also developed the sewer model, and all the consultants that we work with are using those models. So they will use that model for us. You may recall in 2019, when I came on board, was hired by SGWASA, on a monthly basis, SGWASA was flushing water everywhere, especially in Creedmoor. In fact, the Creedmoor commissioners required a board report every month as far as all the hydrants that were flushed and their values. And we did that. We did that for many months, many months. We provided that report. And I asked the question one day, why are we doing all this flushing? And I didn't get a good answer as to why we're doing the flushing where we were. It was simply complaint based. And I said, well, until we figure out exactly why we're doing this flushing and understanding what values we're going for, I think we just need to pause the flushing and understand better how to do this maintenance management throughout the system. And that model led to an improvement that we just did at the Creedmoor, at the Lake Road Booster Station that you're aware of as well, being proactive in terms of the flushing program. One of the things that has not been developed is a formal flushing program in SGWASA. And that's something that we've wanted to address the last couple of years. We do flush hydrants. We do cooperate with the fire departments to flush those hydrants. We do that. We don't have a good program established to flush all the hydrants and maintain all the hydrants throughout all the communities that we serve. And that's something that we're promoting in this budget that you have in front of you this evening as well. We think it's important. It's very important. There's been some other priorities in the last couple of budget years as well for some operators at our water plant, our wastewater plant, for our staffing. We recognize that we need to do a better job. And that's basically what we have in front of the board here as well. I do not want the board or the public to think that flushing is the silver bullet to the problem here. And that's one reason why we're taking this approach to look at samples throughout the entire distribution network, which we've done in the last week or so. And I think it's important to note that a footnote to the Creedmoor testing that you're doing 5 samples at a time on hydrants. These samples that you've taken so far are not indicative of the entire distribution network with the city of Creedmoor. There's values that are lower that we have throughout those test values as well. So I don't want to present the idea that we've got elevated manganese or iron levels throughout every distribution pipe within the city of Creedmoor, because that's not the case. But we have old pipes, and we're not sure if there's a causal relationship with the improvement that we just did at the Lake Road Booster Station, where for the first time in 5 years, we started injecting chemicals into the water at that point, as far as chlorine and ammonia, to create the chloramines in the system. And it's interesting that at the same time that we're standing up this plant or this facility, this booster station, is the same time that Creedmoor begins testing the lines as well in the main line. So we're not saying that there is a causal relationship or correlation at this point with that, but that's one of the things that we want to understand. Is it a combination of factors? Is it something specific to that distribution network? Is it the old pipes? Is it just plastic pipes, cast iron pipes, those type of things? So we will get to the answers and get those levels down. We'll also, with the board's help, increase our flushing program to do a better program, to stay on top of it, if you will, and figure out what we need to do here to maintain our water quality at or below the MCLs or the secondary MCLs that we have out there throughout the entire distribution network.
It's just that throughout all this testing, SGWASA's position has been, you've got to flush them before you test them. You've got to flush them before you test them. And we're doing that.
Let me correct you on that. It's not SGWASA's position. It's the protocol that the state sets forward.
That's fine, but I'm talking about the letters that in the emails we've received from SGWASA and the conversations that we've had. I don't talk to anybody else but them. So I just want to make sure that if flushing is the answer, we're doing it. If flushing is not the answer, we find it. And I appreciate the fact that you have reached out to our engineering staff, and I hope that they will have an answer for us soon.
Thank you. Okay. So we know when it leaves the water treatment plant, it's way below any levels. So between here and Creedmoor, it's picking up.
Right. And to Scott's point, we have taken samples throughout the distribution system to kind of see what it looks like as far as that's concerned. We're processing that data. We're providing that to Hayes and Sawyer, and we will get answers from this.
Okay. So when you say the distribution system, are you taking samples like we're doing in Creedmoor from other locations within the system itself?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Are you going to make those results available to us as well as soon as you get them?
I can make them, if that's what you want, I can make them available.
I would be interested to see where else in the distribution system is related to what we have going on in Creedmoor. Yes.
Okay.
So the next thing that I wanted to ask about was the engineering standards upgrade project. Commissioner Mims and I, when we got on this board in 2020, had found dead-end piping in some of the cul-de-sacs. And we mentioned to stop the issues that SGWASA was having to face, that we changed the construction requirements to require looped piping so that dead-end piping is not good. We all know that. And it's been going on for years, and we need to stop it. So 5 years later, I need to know, we've got 2 subdivisions that have been approved in Creedmoor in the last 2 years. And we've got a new subdivision. I think there's one going in Butner.
Yes.
But I need to know, have we enforced the looping, or is there going to be dead-end piping in those drawings?
Sure. I can speak.
And it's only to stop the bleeding by SGWASA. Because whenever it happens and the water gets mad, they're not going back after the city, they're going back to SGWASA.
Sure, I can speak to that. So at the January 14th SGWASA board meeting, the board voted in favor of updating our standards and details as it relates to design of water and sewer infrastructure. This project has started, and we had a couple of meetings with the engineering firm, C.D. & Smith. We are currently in process of designing these standards and details and hope to have this information completed by the end of 2025. Now, in 2020, the city of Creedmoor asked for all dead-end pipes and new developments to have auto flushers on them so that water does not go stagnant inside the distribution line. Currently, with any development project, SGWASA tries to reduce the number of dead-end lines the distribution system has, thus enhancing water flows and enhancing water quality. SGWASA is currently in process of updating our standards and details this upcoming fiscal year, so some version of reducing dead-end lines will be stipulated inside of this document, specifically for any new construction. This will include introduction of auto flushers and the possibility of looping distribution lines on itself so there are no dead ends. Also, for all ongoing construction projects, these comments will also be incorporated, therefore reducing the need for staff to flush these lines manually and increasing the turnover in the water lines at dead ends.
So it's been 5 years and this project is not done. That's the point I'm making.
Well, the project just started in January, and these are board-approved policies that have to be done by the board. Our plans and specs are outdated, and we recognize that. So we've turned to the consultants to upgrade our plans for us. We're working through that. You'll have those plans or those specs in front of you for board approval coming this summer.
So all subdivisions that have been approved by SGWASA since 2020 will not have dead-end piping?
So all approved subdivisions by SGWASA were approved via the policies and the specs that were approved by the board. That's what the engineers follow. Basically, we have an opportunity to sit down with them and say, we'd prefer to do this. We'd like you to loop that. We don't want a dead end over here. The plans and the specs for Brames Crossing were approved back in 2017, 2018. Right. The plans for Mangum Farms 2 were approved back in 2017. We've had an opportunity to work with them recently on phase 2 to work on some engineering through there, but our standards are our standards, and they've not been updated to prevent or say that you can't have dead-end mains, and there is no requirement in there presently that says that you must install auto flushers if you do have a dead-end main.
But I will say with that, even though a development project, the construction plans have been completed, we may not necessarily be able to reduce that specific dead-end main. However, we can go above and beyond the firm that's putting it in, and we can also install auto flushers at each cul-de-sac or each dead-end line, just as they would with the design.
Well, Brames was the first subdivision that came back to us with a modification since I got on the board, and we told them there's 14 cul-de-sacs, we want 14 auto flushers, and they agreed to it. But when it was brought to this board in 2020, my point is, why is it taking so long to get the regulations change. It's 5 years and they're not changed. And now we're only going to start working on them now. So that's the question I'm asking.
Well, I don't have a good answer for you, Commissioner. On top of all the other work that we've done in the last 5 years to get us to where we are this evening, I don't have an answer for you as to why we didn't start 3 years ago on these plans and specs.
But the biggest complaint that SGWASA faces and all of us on this board face is water quality issues.
But it's not dead-end piping and auto flushers. We're working on that, Commissioner. I'm sorry that you don't like the schedule that we're on. We think that we are positioned presently based on this I-85 project and the growth that we have in front of us, that now is the time to get these plans and specs updated to meet our current needs, and that's what we're working on. So I apologize they weren't done 5 years ago, but we're working on them now to get them done, and they will be done, and then we will have them in place for all the construction that's going to occur 3 years from now based on the I-85 project being finished. So I think we're still well within the window to have these plans and specs approved and updated to meet the construction needs of the organization, to meet the water quality that we're looking for, so that we don't have the dead end lines around the cul-de-sacs or the other cities. Now, that doesn't fix all the construction that was done in the last 50 years as well, which is still a problem. It's still something that we have to address, and we're going to look at that as well. And that may be some additional construction, some capital improvement to loop those lines as well, to work on water quality. So the goal is to get there. These are all pieces, parts to help us get to better water quality, whether it be disinfection byproducts improvements, $15 million at the water plant, whether it's a $200,000 upgrade at the Creedmoor booster station, all the other upgrades that we're doing to our system here. It's all part of what we're doing as far as our continuous improvement approach. So that's where we are in that project.
And when something is permitted through the state, once it's permitted, we don't have the ability to go back and make comments as needed. So if it was permitted previously, we can't change the design of it. However, we can incorporate our stuff above and beyond what the design shows. So that's what we are.
So Creedmoor Village should have.
Creedmoor Village has not been approved.
Okay.
It has not been approved to my knowledge as far as design.
No, but I want you to know that all the developers that we're working with, we are telling them that the standards are being changed as we speak. So just be aware of this, that when these plans are approved or these specs are approved, these policies by the board, that's what you're going to be following for your design. So we're making them well aware of that at this point as well. So